And you're still live on the JoyNews channel. This is the polls coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. This afternoon, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is demanding answers on why some $100.7 million was not paid into the petroleum holding funds as required by law. We have details as they take their turn before an 8-member ad hoc committee probing the censure motion against Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. We'll get your details shortly, plus take you to Parliament. Meanwhile, the minority is calling for the suspension of the Ghana Standards Authority's directive that seeks to ban the importation of used cars without a certificate of conformance. We'll hear from some car dealers who are demanding an urgent reduction in import duties, which they say is collapsing their business. And the Bank of Ghana is also this afternoon withdrawing support for some goods classified as non-essential imports, including poultry, vegetable oil and toothpicks. We'll talk about that as well as we look at the implication for Ghanaian businesses here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities, digging low, affordable, safe sanitation. Don't forget that we're also live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles. I'm Blessed Sogah and welcome to the program. And this afternoon, the Public Accounts Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is demanding answers on why $100.7 million was not paid into the petroleum holding funds as required by law. The amounts actually relates to some over 944,000 barrels of crude liftings that were made by JOHL, a subsidiary of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation that actually holds about 7% of interest in our Jubilee and 10 oil fields on behalf of the state. Now, the stake was acquired into 2021 from Anadako. PIAC, a state watchdog over management and utilization of our petroleum revenue, however, indicates that the crude lifting proceeds, the first by JOHL, were made, but the payments were not made into the Petroleum Holding Fund, contrary to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. And of course, following the acquisition of the 7% interest in the 10 and Jubilee fields by GNPC in 2021, we later ceded that to our subsidiary JOHL and made our first lifting. However, some payments have not been made. And this was part of the issues that came up when the 8-member ad hoc committee sat today to hear from some of the officials of PIAC. We can now cross over to Parliament to get more on what's happening. For now, the committee is on a little break, but Kweku Asante, our parliamentary correspondent, is there for us monitoring events. Kweku, let's start off with where, of course, the majority began to raise questions about the reports itself. First of all, asking, and we just heard from the chair of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, indicating that the process is not conclusive. That's the note on which he started. Why is he having some challenges accepting this 2021 report as being conclusive?
So, Blessed, to start with, this particular allegation and this particular issue relates to ground 3 of the NDC minority's censure motion against Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Let me read it to you. It says, illegal payment of oil revenues into offshore accounts in flagrant violation of Article 176 of the 1992 Constitution. And that was anchored on a report that was authored by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, like you rightly said. And so yesterday, Tuesday actually, Dr. Kesela Tuforsin and the minority leader Haruna Idisu led evidence to back these claims. It was then that the committee decided that both PIAC and GNPC should be invited to appear before the committee to provide some answers before ultimately Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta appears. So today you've heard the Nasser Alpha Mohammed, who is the vice president of PIAC, defending their report, which said that over $100 million of money that belongs to the state, which belongs in terms of the ownership to GNPC's subsidiary, the Jubilee Oil Holding Limited, the JOHL, they lifted some oil and they were supposed to pay this amount of money into the Petroleum Holding Fund, but did not do so. They paid it into the account of the company, which is not in Ghana, which is offshore. The minority say this is a flagrant violation of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act as well as the 1992 Constitution. like I told you over there. This is a position PIAC actually accedes to. And actually, like I said, this minority ground is anchored on this report from PIAC. And so some questionings have been asked of Alpha Mohammed, particularly from the New Patriotic Party side. We first heard from Andrew Ejapamesa, who sought to question that the rightful place of those funds were first supposed to be lodged into the account of this company, which is a subsidiary of GNPC, before onward disbursement to the Petroleum Holding Fund. This is not a position that the minority agree with. This is also not a position that PIAC agrees with. They say that by law, all such amounts of money must first be put in the Petroleum Holding Fund before any disbursement can be made. And so that has been the sticking point at today's committee meeting, where both sides have been making forceful arguments as to which side they think is the accurate. We've heard from Patrick Boama, we've heard from Andrew Ejapamesa, who've been leading the majority NPP onslaught on this recommendation from PIAC. But just like you said, before the committee went on this 1 hour break, we heard from Kwame Animedu. He's the chairman of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, and he's been questioning that the PIAC report cannot be said to be conclusive because it first must be submitted to Parliament. Parliament will debate it, some input will be made before that can be said to be final. Like you would see there, Dr. Dominic Ayine, former Attorney General, the MP for Bolga East, as well as the co-chair of this committee, do not agree, and PIAC also do not agree that the report is not final until Parliament debates or takes a vote on it. So that has been the sticking point and the point of departure in today's sitting.
But what's instructive to note is that PIAC says it stands by these findings and that the report, as it is, in their view, is conclusive.
Indeed, so this indicts the finance minister. We know that the minority have laid their grounds and they are in the process of proving it. PIAC says that the finance minister ought to have ensured that this amount of money from GNPC's subsidiary, JOHL, the Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited, should have first been paid into the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, the holding fund, before disbursement was made to the JOHL. So if the committee holds that this evidence that has been led by GNPC is anything to go by, then at least we can point to one of the 7 grounds that have been made against the finance minister. They say he's guilty. So now we have the minority saying he's guilty. We have the Public Interest and Accountability Committee saying he's guilty. It is up to the committee now to put some weight on this evidence and present a report to the House. But GNPC is expected to appear before the committee when they resume from this 1 hour break. And the indication I have is that they have a completely different understanding of their law. They say that the JOHL, as a subsidiary of the company, could take on these funds, hold them in their account before onward disbursement to the Petroleum Revenue Fund.
Kwekwe Parliamentary correspondent, giving us the latest on the 8 ad hoc member committee that's, of course, hearing from PIAC and GNPC, scheduled to appear in the next 20 minutes. We'll still be on the lookout for that. But for now, the minority in Parliament is also indicating that government must suspend the implementation of the Customs Amendment Act 2020, specifically Section 61. The law requires used vehicles imported into Ghana to be accompanied by a valid certificate of conformance from an approved body. Importers of used vehicles have criticized the directive as one that will collapse their businesses. Speaking to JoyNews, ranking member on the Roads and Transport Committee, Governor Kwame Apoja, indicated that implementing the law will price out the poor from owning vehicles in this country.
Specifically to make vehicles that come to the country safer for both the users and other people in the country. That is accepted. But I want to call upon the Ghana Standards Authority to hasten slowly, probably suspend the implementation on this basis. They must learn from the hasty implementation of the luxury vehicle tax. They must learn from the hasty suspension of the collection of road tolls. They must learn from other laws that were passed in this House and without adequate preparation, consultation and public education implemented and drove us all into problem. As we speak, that 891 that we are talking about talked about the fact that we are going to set up a new system where brand new vehicles are assembled in this country to make them more available. The first question is, how many companies are assembling vehicles in this country, and what are the choices of vehicles available to the Ghanaian? Are those vehicles at prices that the ordinary Ghanaian, a journalist, a teacher, a nurse can afford? Even thinking of when we pass the law and the state of the economy today, even if you are selling those vehicles for $5,000, do you know what $5,000 means to the average Ghanaian that will buy them? Then we go to the point of used vehicles needing to have conformance certificate. Nobody is encouraging vehicles that have been totally condemned. I mean, accident vehicles that are no longer fit for purpose to be brought to
well, some Ghanaians and car dealers are demanding urgent reduction in import duties, as they say high taxes and duties is actually collapsing their businesses.
This is Joe & Co. mechanic shop attached to a second-hand car dealership at Achimota here in Accra. On a normal day, these workers would have been busy at this time fixing vehicle problems to prepare them for sale.
Since Monday, even the spanner said, I'm not even open my tools so that I'll just get any job. The hardship has let everything go down.
But that is not so today. A drop in business for vehicle dealers means a drop in the business of mechanics as well.
Comparing our job now and the previous months, let me say maybe 6 months back, the work has slowed down simply because the importers cannot bring the cars because of the duty. That's what they complain.
The vehicle dealers say their business has been impacted by the high import duties and the depreciating currency. George Dumanu is a member of the Korea Importers Association of Ghana and has been addressing a news conference in Accra.
The reversal of the benchmark value has become a double-edged sword, such that if care is not taken, it will do more harm than good. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is because some importers may use ports in our neighboring countries and try to dodge the duty, and government will lose a lot of revenue.
Godfred Gia is an executive member of the association. He tells us about how the price of his vehicles have risen in the last 6 months.
But as I'm talking, just last month, I cleared same goods. I paid Hyundai Mighty 44,065. Just yesterday, colleagues are paying 50,000 and 60,000 for Mighty and Rhino.
He wants government to reduce import duties.
But because of the import taxes, which has gone high, most of our workers have gone home because we can't afford to pay them. So we will be very happy if the government can reduce the taxes so that the importers can bring more cars, so that we can also employ more hands to reduce the unemployment, especially on the youth.
Esther Nkrumah and Prince Owusu-Ansah's report read to you.
And now the Bank of Ghana has withdrawn foreign exchange support to customers for the importation of certain non-critical or essential goods. Joy Business, however, understands that the withdrawal of the FX support for the importation of these non-essential goods took effect in the past 3 weeks. The goods affected include rice, poultry, vegetable oils, toothpicks, pasta, fruit juice, bottled water, and ceramic tiles as well. Well, fortunately, we've been joined by Joy Business's George Weafe, who's joining us in studio with more details on this. George, so why is the BOG taking this decision?
Well, still, we don't have any official communication from the Bank of Ghana with respect to this action. But if you could cast your mind back when the president gave his address on what the government is trying to do to stabilize things for it. There was a hint that BOG will be taking some action. And for those who are making an intelligent guess, or if you engage those who are in the banking industry, because we also understand that there has been communication to the commercial banks that going forward, we can't extend support to you for these particular goods. It doesn't mean that BOG has directed these banks that do not lend. But I think that what the Bank of Ghana, again, engaging those in the industry and those who have been working at the Bank of Ghana, but though not official communication from the Bank of Ghana, what we understand is that it's about managing our current reserves. You don't know when, that's now as we speak right now with our current position, we are looking forward to having an IMF program to boost our reserves. Right. And therefore now Ghana can go to the international market to raise money. So whatever position that you are right now. So
this is more or less a stopgap measure for us. But we're not too certain if that's the official position.
Yeah, but if you engage the industry persons and those of the bank, you get the measure that it's part of the measures to manage our international reserves to ensure that it doesn't deplete so quickly, because don't forget that our current position, we are waiting to get a fund program that we are going to get some support from the IMF to help with our balance of payment needs. Basically, the Bank of Ghana providing support for these commercial banks to support certain items that are coming in. And the bank is saying that going forward, they would give funding to items that are seen as very, very critical, like pharmaceutical products, medical supplies, medicine, and petroleum products as well.
I'm just worried as to why we're not including, for instance, rice. If you look at our demand figures, it's quite clear that this is a staple that we rely on so much. Classifying it as non-essential could pose some dangers to the market.
The argument you get from them is that it appears that there is still enough of some of these local rice, and even within our market that has already been brought in. Okay. And so this is more of support for fresh import. And this is not a directive to the commercial banks that do not fund. This is, as far as the Bank of Ghana is concerned, when it comes to what the auctions that they do, when it comes to giving cover or advancing dollar support to the commercial banks to on-lend to some of these institutions, they are now trying to restrict themselves to certain things they deem as essential. If tomorrow you are in the rice business, you're in the business where you import VOS water into the country. I mean, we are importing bottled mineral water into this country, and you bring in every month about 10 containers of it. If you can go to Bank A or go to the open market and get dollars or LCs to support, you can go ahead. But the Bank of Ghana, when it comes to us in terms of the auctioning of our dollars and all those things, we will limit the support that we give to you as a company and all the rest. And it tells you that it's a more of a management strategy that since your inflows are dwindling, you want to make sure that whatever that you have is managed strategically, because the last thing that you want is to get to the level where you cannot get access to dollars to import petroleum products. You cannot get access to import critical medical supplies. But some would also raise issues as well. At the time that we are getting into the Christmas season, most people consumption or what they consume are primarily imported stuff. If you limit the support, are the commercial banks in the position right now to support companies that are in the business of importing rice, importing vegetable oil? And what could be the impact of this funding challenge for those who are into this business, and how that would impact on prices of these items on the open market?
Okay, then. But George, are we getting a sense of the outlook as to how long this may last, and if we are going to see a return?
That's something that we are not getting any official communication. So this is just a temporary measure. And if what we are getting from government is that all other things being equal, they could close a staff agreement by before the end of this year. And maybe we could get the inflows coming in from the first quarter of next year. Maybe this might be just from now to the end of the year, and that things could get maybe normal in the first quarter of next year.
Right. George, just hold on. Let's get the reaction of some industry players. John Awuni is executive member of the Food and Beverages Importers Association of Ghana. John, thank you for your time. How are you reacting to this? And of course, from our side, we're not able to independently verify if there's a strict enforcement or perhaps order coming through from the central bank to all of the commercial banks that, well, don't give priority to non-essential items. But that's the general feedback from members within the industry. As the Association of Food and Beverages, do you also share the same concern that that's taking off, the fact that priority is not being given to non-essential products and its importation?
Well, thank you very much. And good afternoon to your viewers and listeners. We have also picked up that information that the Bank of Ghana has given strict orders to commercial banks to ensure that they do not supply dollars to people who import rice, poultry, ceramic products, tires, ceramic products, toothpick, water, and the like. That's what we have picked up. And for me, as a development economist, as an expert in the industry, as a consultant, as a researcher over the past over 20 years, I would say that on the face value, it is a very good policy, in the sense that we are in very difficult and critical times. Indeed, even we are not even difficult and critical times, to promote local production or to promote the consumption of locally produced goods is a very good thing. No country and no family can continue to rely on outside supply. So for me, in terms of economics, that is right. But I would say that the timing is wrong. I would say that the decision has not been formulated based on great information. What I know on the ground, and I do a lot of research. I speak to farmers daily. I speak to maize farmers. I speak to poultry producers. I am on various business platforms, and so I know what is happening. So I would say that for me, if they were to talk about we are restricting the importation of water, that makes sense. That for me, yes, all of us from time to time, I have imported water to my house to drink, but I don't think that it makes any lot of sense to bring in water from another country. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Mm. In terms of tiles, in my research, I know we produce a lot of tiles in the country. Toothpick, pasta, and the like, you can restrict that, but you cannot clearly classify rice, poultry, and vegetable oil or general cooking oil as non.
What's your fear? What's your fear generally? That we're not sufficient? Is that the argument you're making?
The argument is that clearly we have not prepared for this as a country, and that is a fact. You have Joy FM in the last week. You ran stories, and I clearly listened to it, where the president of the Ghana Rights Professional Body. I was the president of that body for for 4 years. I listened to him, and I was very interested in the story. And the man lamented the same story that I talked about and lamented about when I was the president in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. That the industry lacks support. It lacks government support. I again also listened to the president of or the chairman of the Ghana Poultry Producers Association. And he said on your station that if the government doesn't take care, the 2% that we are producing locally will eventually collapse, and it will be that we will be importing 100%. If these people just spoke last week, and also my checks on the ground, I have one of the executives and a big poultry producer just by me. They returned from Morocco. And indeed, he gave me a story that was quite embarrassing. He said, in fact, the Moroccan government, at the point in their meeting, asked the president that, what is the total consumption of poultry in Ghana? And the president couldn't answer, not due to no fault of his. An individual doesn't do census. So as we speak now, my brother, we don't know how many goats we have in this country. Mm. We don't know how many cows we produce in this country. We don't know how many fowls or whatever we produce in this country. As we speak now, we have no data on these things. Day-old chickens, we don't have. We are currently importing day-old chickens from Belgium, day-old chickens from Morocco. And indeed, the farmers are not even getting enough. If you speak to poultry producers, they will tell you that yes, the policy is a good policy, but we are not prepared. Yesterday, I was discussing with one of the executive poultry producers, and he told me that we are currently selling a bird at 85 cedis, a bird of about 1.5 to 3 kilos at 85 cedis. By December, we'll be selling at 150 cedis. Question is, my brother, can you afford it for your house throughout the week, throughout the month? A bird of about 1.5 or 3 kilos on the average at 150 Ghana cedis. As we speak now, we are selling local rice at 600 cedis for 50 kg. Imported rice is about 900 cedis. As we speak now, we are selling at the farm gate soya beans 500 Ghana cedis for 85 kg. We are selling maize over 300 Ghana cedis, and this is just harvesting season I am talking about.
Okay, we'll talk about some of the policy interventions we're beginning to see so far, but I just want to take thoughts of George Uyafe on the issue about data, the fact that we don't have sufficient data. It's a genuine concern, isn't it? And that may cripple this exercise.
I mean, it's more of a double-edged decision that the BOG has taken. Yes, you need to manage your reserves, good one, but also, just like what he's saying, we're just waiting to see how this could hit the market badly, or maybe it will be good for us, because the fact remains that we need to take measures to manage our reserves. But again, what could be the possible impact of this if somebody who is bringing in rice can no longer get support from BOG? But again, as far as I'm concerned, there isn't a directive to the banks or the commercial banks that do not provide.
What do you want to believe?
No. I'm saying that for the fact that what BOG is saying is that they cannot provide support for the importation of certain things. So normally the commercial banks fall on BOG for dollar support through auctions and other programs. So Bank of Ghana is saying that going forward, we will support certain importation of goods that are deemed as essential in these times. Petroleum products, medical products, and all the rest. Right. If you're bringing in Voss mineral water, if you're bringing in
something out of rice, luxury.
Luxury is debatable. Well, anyway, a Voss that is luxury for you is not luxury for someone like Fred Smith. Right. You understand me? Right. So it's a debatable issue here. So the BOG is saying that we will not extend cover for some of these items. That doesn't stop you from going to a bank B or Z if that bank is in a position.
So once the bank is willing to support you,
the commercial banks is
fair enough.
But some are saying that well, everybody wants to fall on the Bank of Ghana as a lender of last resort. So even if you have dollars as a bank right now, a commercial bank, you want to hold on to it and rather fall on BOG for support. Right. So what it could happen with this is that if it's going to cost them more, they're going to pass on that cost to you. Yeah. There's an argument about whether the local market also has the capacity in terms of vegetable oil, in terms of the one that is produced locally. Do we produce enough to meet the local needs, or is still complemented by what we import? And at the time when we're going to Christmas, where, funny enough, when it's Christmas, people want to just change their preference that, oh, I also want to celebrate myself a little bit, go in for foreign products and all the rest for the parties and all the rest. So it could work, it's going to work, but there's a negative impact of this on the general price of goods and services and the availability of certain products on the market as well.
And John, we're beginning to see, for instance, interventions from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. The policy about the PFJ market. You've seen that, for instance, where, of course, our government is trying to intervene, deal with the transport hurdles and bits down the cost. Is that not working for you as members of the Food and Beverage Importers Association?
No, as I'm speaking, I speak in the interest of the nation and as an expert in the industry. So I am not speaking basically in the interest of food and beverage. That has to do with the business. That is very myopic. That would be very myopic, and that would be very greedy. We are talking about national interest. I'm talking about what will happen to my driver, what will happen to my secretary, what will happen to those down there, what will happen to the teacher whose salary is 2,000 cedis. You see, the interventions you're talking about that the Minister of Agri has done, those are not you shouldn't consider that as intervention.
You don't see that as a policy measure? In fact, we've seen the mad rush, for instance, for some of the items they've put on display.
No, that is not a sustainable intervention. Like, you see, if you are talking about an intervention, look, what we should have been looking at is that, yes, we would have looked back 2 years ago and said that, listen, in 2022, or maybe we started thinking about this like 2019, 2018, said by 2022 this time, we are going to restrict imports of poultry and ABCD products. In view of that, we are going to lay a foundation for that. We want to gather data on total imports. We want to gather data on total local production. And so if we restrict imports by 30%, what size of land do we require to be able to produce rice, to be able to compensate for that shortage that will be created? If we restrict poultry by 50%, how many birds and what kind of farmers and all that? You need to prepare all those grounds. You need to prepare your irrigation systems. You need to build up a buffer stock. You need to be able to have a good data. As it is now, I am saying that we are cooking food. It's like cooking food in your house, but you don't know the number of mouths you are going to feed. And that is very, very dangerous. Yes, it may sound as very good, but you cannot seem to be cooking food when you don't know how many mouths you are going to feed. That is what we are doing now. We don't know what kind of level of shortage we are creating in the country. If there's the massive shortage we are going to create now, as it is now, it is Harmattan season in the north. The north happen to be the food basket of the country. How are we going to produce rice in the next 2-3 months to fill in any shortage that will be created? There are no day-old chickens in the country. There are no, in fact, indeed, people have even slaughtered their layers and sold out. So how are you going to produce in the next 3-4 weeks or import day-old chickens and distribute to all farmers, and then now they can grow them up for about 8 weeks and then slaughter them and supply to the market? What have we done as a country? The foundation has not been laid, and I am emphasizing on that. If you look at it, the economic policy is good. Indeed, total ban of imports is good. And I have always said this over the years. No rice seller or no importer has any covenant with any supplier abroad that I will not sell local rice. I am going to sell only imported rice. If you want, business is business. Whether the profit is from imported rice or imported chicken or local chicken, your profit is profit. So indeed, if you make these goods readily available, the importers will shift to that. And indeed, it makes it more convenient, because if the importer buys goods from locally, you have nothing to do with foreign exchange, foreign exchange fluctuations. If the importer buys goods locally, there are certain tax exemptions that you may not do. I started the local rice project in this country in 2001. I went around the entire country galvanizing farmers to produce locally produced rice. I imported seeds for local farmers, indeed to the extent that there were seeds that were named after me in Domwenya. I brought in a lot of investors into the country, indeed for rice and even for sugar. So I am in all for that. And no country, like I have said before, you cannot rely on external support. If we had put our house in order at this point in time, we would not have been crying about the fact that we are restricting supply and whatever not. Automatically, you would have shifted to the local supply. But what I want to point out is that our local supply is subject to seasonality. This is farming season. This is harvesting season. So you can find maize in the market. You can find granite in the market. You can find soya bean in the market. You can find rice in the market. But come after the harvesting season, these things are going to go out of stock. And listen to this. To talk about preparation, if you go send your cameras to Tamale, you'll find that people from the Sahelian countries, from Burkina Faso, from Mali, from Niger, indeed, people from even our neighbors, Nigeria, they are coming with trucks to the farm gates and they are loading soya beans, they are loading maize, they are loading beans, they are loading rice out of the country.
All right, John.
The rice we already have enough in the country. How can you now allow them to be taking these things out? So these things have not been done. And my advice to the government is that it is a good thing. We are in a very critical time. We are in a very difficult time. We all acknowledge that. But let us also consider the ordinary consumer. Let us also consider the rate of inflation that has already been created. The 2016, we had local rice sold at 70 cedis for 50 kg. Today, it is sold at 600 cedis. That 2016, we had imported rice sold at 150. Hello?
Oh, yes, just land on that point for me.
At 2016, we had imported rice at 150 cedis. Today, we are selling about 650, 700 cedis. How much does the ordinary Ghanaian earn? So when you do this, you may even increase the rate of corruption at the ministries because people will have to find survival means. The current situation is not adequate for us to embark on that. Even we are short of dollars at the banking level, we should not announce this. The banks on the silent can manage this. Otherwise, we are going to create a serious panic in the market, and prices of goods, whether local or imported, will go further than they have gone.
And that's a man passionate about his industry. John Awuni, we're grateful for your time. George, let's wrap up. Of course, the issues about forex is not the only raft of measures the president announced, which means that going forward, we're likely to see some more policy
When you
measures.
follow the presentation, and later when Kojo Oponoso spoke on our program PM Express, you realize that in the coming days, we're having some of the ministers coming out to give more details about all these things. So those things will be. I think that time will tell whether the Bank of Ghana will be vindicated or they will get it wrong. But as just like trying to clarify, since there hasn't been any official communication from the Bank of Ghana,
to wait.
What I can say is that Bank of Ghana is limiting supply of dollars to the commercial banks when it comes to these imports. Nobody has told any commercial bank that don't lend to any institution that is doing so. For instance, as I said, if you are into bringing in mineral water, you can still go to your bank A and demand that
just try.
to provide LCs to aid your import. What Bank of Ghana is trying to do is to manage what they have in terms of their reserves
to give priority much more.
We don't lose out when it comes to bringing in petroleum products, medical supplies,
and other essential.
These are what they call essential things. So that is then. Let's see. Time will tell whether they got it wrong or they got it right.
George, I'm grateful. And of course, as we know it, today is the World Preterm Day. It simply means that a baby born before the end of 37 weeks of pregnancy. So how much do we know about the situation and how do we manage it? In the following report, Hannah Ontame of our health desk speaks to it.
First-time mother Matilda Mensah was at work happily rubbing her belly. She was 28 weeks pregnant at that time. Hours after having some time with her baby in the womb, she saw her feet swell, her vision blur, and experienced some stomach ache. As a nurse, doctors in her facility immediately attended to her, but then they had to rush her to a better equipped facility due to her condition. Matilda will get to know upon reaching the hospital that she had to undergo an emergency cesarean session to keep her alive.
All what they were saying is, we have to save you, we have to save you. They were not mentioning the baby, so me, I was thinking I'm not going to get the baby.
Matilda, however, woke up from a deep sleep to be told she had a baby girl who was alive and receiving treatment at the NICU.
In fact, when I met her, I thought she would not survive because she was very tiny, very, very tiny. So I was asking myself, how will she survive through that weight? She was 0.8.
Though the daunting task of caring for a preterm has taken a toll on her, Matilda is grateful to have a huge support system, something she wishes for every mother with a preterm baby.
To take care of a premature baby is really stressful. Yes, my husband really supported me. Yes, I'm happy he didn't leave me behind, he supported me.
This is what pediatrician at the Shai Osudoku Hospital in the Greater Accra region, Dr. Mamiya Bafo Iwa, has been advocating for. According to her, supporting families, especially mothers with preemies as they are usually called, goes a long way to boost their morale.
When you have a mother in your family or community and then they come with a preterm baby, this is a distressed mother. They need support. So people shouldn't come and have a look at the baby and say, hey, this is a tiny baby. No, because they grow very fast, especially when you keep them in the kangaroo mother care. Very soon they are grown and nobody even knows they were preterm. So if we don't support them and then we rather mock them in a way, it doesn't help, because you don't know the next time be your turn or that of your child. So we should support them when they come home.
Global statistics by the World Health Organization reveals about 6 to 10 out of 100 babies are born preterm. In Ghana, the survival rate is between 65 to 80%. Dr. Bafwewa, who believes this is dependent on the availability of required machines needed for their care, outlines some of the complications which causes the death of preemies.
Some of them include day bleeding during delivery or having other birth injuries. Some can die from a low blood sugar, what we call hypoglycemia. And because they cannot store food, then they have those. Others too can have hypothermia. They become cold. You know, we adults, even when we are cold, we want to cover ourselves into the side of the bed. And so some may become cold and die. Others too, when they are very preterm, then hypoxia can also kill them.
She adds, though most premature babies do not experience deformity, there are survival measures that mothers must adhere to ensure steady developmental growth.
We have some mothers, they never come for antenatal clinics and then they just present. And then such mothers are also, or they have the potential to use herbal medications and other things. They do other things, taking alcohol and all that, and all those things predispose to prematurity. So a mother who doesn't attend antenatal clinic has a higher chance of delivering a premature baby, and that is very true.
Selina Bintum, mother of 7-year-old Ken, who was born premature, is founder of the African Foundation for Premature Babies and Neonatal Care. Her foundation has supported several mothers with premature babies across the country with counseling and needed items for care of their preemies, among others.
There are 4 critical players in the survival process. We have the parents, the patient, we have the community, government, healthcare professionals. In no way should we put one player above the other. We have equal responsibility. And so being able to inform the public, prepare them enough, let them understand that these babies can and do survive.
Reiterating the measures outlined by Dr. Bafwewa, Selina Bintum and Matilda Mensah are all advocating regular attendance of pregnant women to antenatal. Preterm babies are born earlier than their gestation period. However, they are just like normal children, and advocates want them and their parents to be treated as such. For JoyNews, I am Hannah Odame.
And of course, as we mark the day, it's time for us to expand the conversation and try and look at how we could be increasing investment into the sector. Well, Selina Bintum is founder of African Foundation for Premature Babies and Neonatal Care. Selina, it's good to have you here on The Pulse.
Thank you.
Of course, as we mark the day, World Premature Day, I'm sure that there's a message, a call to action that you're putting across. What's the message?
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity, because this is what it means. It means that we are empowering parents and patients. We are educating more people and giving an opportunity for the discussion around this sensitive topic to happen. So if you care to know about the AFPNC, so it is a Pan-African, the first Pan-African organization that's established to represent the interests of parents and patients, and also working with healthcare professionals and the scientific groups and key stakeholders to address the issue that affects newborns, especially when they are born sick, small, or preterm or too soon. It started from my personal experience, as the documentary showed. My son.
Yeah, we saw the story.
Yes. My son was born preterm when he was just 6 months into my pregnancy. My water broke. Now, I was a healthy pregnant woman, but then when this happened, the doctor wanted to induce labor. However, the midwife advised against his directive and said, let's perform an emergency surgery. That is what saved my baby. Wow. What happens that because I was losing the Lycor, the amniotic fluid that protects the baby in the womb, and that if not for the midwife, because during the procedure, we realized that he had tied his umbilical cord around his neck twice, which meant that if the doctor had gone ahead to induce labor, this baby would have been strangled in the process of delivery. So my journey through prematurity, nurturing him, my journey through nurturing him as a premature baby in the NICU inspired me to do extensive research into the issue of prematurity. Who else is going through this? Why is this happening to us? And even questioning my competency as a woman and the trauma that I was going through and how that is impacting my care for my baby as well. That made us realize that the government will be limited in the sense of advocacy can do. It cannot fight against itself. Healthcare professionals do amazing work on our babies. However, they are also limited because their focus is providing care for the baby in the NICU. Now, we need to be a third force that will work with these key stakeholders and other key stakeholders who address the issue. And so we focus a lot on our advocacy, raising funds to support our projects and other projects within the space, improving standards of care and strengthening stakeholder partnership. So the aspect of advocacy is why we are here today. Why? Because there are two aspects of advocacy: empowering with knowledge and also working to influence policy formulation and changes. Now, if we are able to influence policy change, it means that, I don't know your hometown, I'm sorry, but my hometown, any baby that is born in my hometown possibly will receive the same quality of care like the baby that was born in the city and has access to rich standard of care and also in Kulibu, for example. So why is this important? Like the statistics indicates, globally is a leading cause of death. And what we realize is that even though neonatal mortality rate is about 47%, account to under 5 is 47%, globally, prematurity takes about 16% out of the 47%. Is a leading cause. In Ghana, it is same. And many live with lifelong disability. So this particular year, we are asking government to increase investments in newborn care. How? Improve infrastructure in the neonatal intensive care units so that care costs of oxygen for a baby, for example, will be reduced. Currently, in some facilities here in Ghana, it's 10 Ghana cedis per hour. For 24 hours, 240 Ghana cedis.
That's how much it will cost you.
That is how much it is going to cost you. And so by 7 days, remember, breathing, ability to breathe on your own is one of the key things, challenges that affect babies, preterm babies, and so they die. And so imagine that this is going to take, the baby will need, especially under one, like Matilda's situation, the baby is below 1 kilo, around 800 grams. This baby needs help and needs to be on oxygen. And so if Matilda's baby is going to stay there for a month, multiply this, and they have to be on oxygen during this period, multiply this by 31 days.
That's really a huge
over 6,000 Ghana cedi per the calculation that I have done.
We'll talk about the way forward, but I just want to pick up on something you said earlier about being the third force. Yeah. So where do we build that coalition from? Of course, you're doing something from your side, but there's more help that we need just to push that advocacy.
Oh, yes, thank you. I mean, in Ghana, I have to say this, to be honest with you, that there has been so many challenges. I mean, we've achieved major milestones. We've completed 44 projects in the last 7 years, reached out to over 200,000 babies and families through our partnership with organizations and institutions that have believed in the vision. It wasn't an easy road. Somebody had to believe in this vision for the parent-patient community. And this has empowered us to be able to do more. Now, what would happen is that in the face of the discouragement, I have to be honest with you that meeting certain aspects, technical aspects within the Ghana Health Services gave me hope that we can make a change. Like the former Director Generals and the current Director General constantly opened their doors, and the immediate past Director for Child, Dr. Isabella Segomoses. Fantastic people who have given us the opportunity and given me a table. I mean, I serve on the some of the national committees on advocacy and communication in the Ghana Health Service, and I appreciate that because it gives us a seat at the table. At the Global Funds, I have the opportunity to serve as a Parents Advisory Board for the European Foundation for the Care of Newborn Infants. It gives me a seat at that global table to influence policies and understand the change, the trend, and be able to be a better advocate. I mean, professionally, by God's grace, I am competent to lead this portfolio. However, as a mother, I have to learn to wear my sleeve and also learn how to lead strategically to be able to see what resources can we use to hire experts and I insist, to be able to push this advocacy that I'm just ranting about right now, it will not just mean you have to be a pretty face and say, no. You need to hire people with the expertise, the technical know-how to meet these experts in government, to be able to appreciate policy documents. You don't need, you don't need a pretty, you have to be beautiful and smart, but I mean, hey, you need to be able to, you need a substance to bring the experts on board to do this. So it's a long journey. Continuous investments in parents and patient organizations like the AFPNC would mean that we are actually preparing the future to make sure that our babies can survive, because we have nothing to lose when we call out the government for good or the bad. We have nothing to lose if we call out maybe the healthcare community if something had to be done and is not done right. But then we also have the opportunity to work together with them as key stakeholders to ensure that every baby everywhere in Ghana receives the best possible start in healthcare.
Till date, are you still facing the challenge of misconceptions about, babies?
Oh yes, I have an experience. I remember when I brought my baby home, my neighbor's son, who usually would come to the room sometimes, he entered into the room and he saw my baby. I mean, listen, my baby was 1.4 kilos. The boy ran back to the mother and said, I have seen Auntie Selena's baby. He has a little small face, small eyes. And that was a child talking, but the mother saw me and laughed and said, my son came and said, your baby has a little face, little nose. And I couldn't believe a mother would encourage this from a child and would not show some concern. And so many mothers that I met, I've interacted with over hundreds and thousands of mothers in the line of my work in the last 7 years. I have to be honest with you. There are many babies that are abandoned in the NICU because they have been rejected by their parents or the families, but they don't understand why, because of the stigmatization. So one of our key responsibilities is to continue working with stakeholders to make sure that we increase awareness on this subject. This is why this one should not be the last time Pulse will engage us on this. Do you understand?
We'll have the conversation again.
You agree? Because if we stop, the conversation ends. But if we intentionally, and I'm so grateful to the multimedia group, I have to say that they opened their doors to engage the parent-patient community, and it is empowering us to be able to make our voices heard during a sensitive important day like this.
All right, then. We need to go, but just 30 seconds for my audience. What will be that special message to them?
Oh, I would say that today, the celebrities for today are our preterm babies that have survived, and also the parents and the healthcare professionals. Listen, we've met healthcare professionals who are wearing their hearts on their sleeves, going every day to make sure that they go the extra mile to make sure that babies survive. This day is for you. It is about you. And for AFPNC, these are the celebrities today. We say that let government increase investments in neonatal care so that every baby everywhere will receive the best possible start in healthcare.
Indeed, and that's the call to all of you. You're still watching The Pulse here on the JoyNews channel. We'll be back shortly. Please stay.